Elara had never known her birth parents, nor did she remember anything of Earth. Her earliest memories were of floating weightless in the arms of Nyx and Var, her adoptive parents from an alien species known as the Valyrians. The Valyrians were highly advanced and almost mystical beings, capable of technology so far beyond human understanding that it often seemed like magic. They traveled the galaxy as explorers, seeking knowledge and harmony with the worlds they encountered, but they rarely involved themselves in the lives of other species. Yet, when they found a small human infant, weak and helpless, abandoned in a city's ruins on Earth, something stirred within them. Perhaps it was a fascination with the human spirit, or perhaps an echo of compassion from a time before their race had become so advanced and self-sufficient. Either way, they took Elara with them, leaving Earth behind to raise her as their own. Nyx was the gentler of the two, with soft, glowing skin that radiated calm and a melodic voice that soothed Elara's fears as a child. Var, tall and dignified, was more reserved, yet he brought Elara wisdom and discipline, guiding her in the customs and knowledge of their people. The Valyrians did not laugh or cry the way humans did, but Elara learned to read their subtle gestures, their quiet signs of affection and pride. As Elara grew, she came to realize she was different. Her human form was delicate compared to the sleek, almost ethereal bodies of her caregivers. She was prone to illnesses and grew tired quickly, especially as her condition worsened over the years. Nyx and Var spared no effort in trying to heal her, bringing her to the most advanced Valyrian doctors, exposing her to their holistic healing methods, even taking her to planets known for their life-giving properties. Elara's condition was evident from a young age, but at first, Nyx and Var dismissed it as an effect of her human biology. Humans, after all, were fragile compared to the Valyrians, and her adoptive parents believed that, with time, their advanced technologies and medical care would strengthen her. However, as Elara grew, it became clear that her disease was not something that could simply be cured or outgrown. She began to lose control over her muscles in small ways. First, a slight tremor in her hands, making it difficult to hold objects or perform delicate tasks. Soon after, her legs would tire quickly, and she could only walk short distances before needing to rest. Nyx would carry her when she grew too exhausted, cradling her in their arms as if she were still the baby they'd first found. The Valyrian physicians examined her in countless ways, their diagnostic tools mapping every inch of her frail human body. They tried various treatments, from cellular regeneration to intricate therapies designed to boost her nervous system's function. For a while, it seemed as though some methods were working. She could move more easily, and her energy improved slightly, which gave her parents hope that she might one day live a life similar to theirs. But as the years passed, her disease only progressed. By the time she was 10, Elara needed a hoverchair to get around, her muscles unable to support her weight. The Valyrians were compassionate, but they were also a practical people. Var, in particular, began to show signs of unease. He would observe her in silence, his eyes betraying a mixture of sorrow and detachment as he watched her struggle. Nyx still doted on her, but even their patience was wearing thin. Elara was aware of these changes, feeling them like a shadow stretching between her and the one she considered family. She could sense the growing distance, the hesitations in Var's voice when he spoke to her, the strained looks Nyx cast at him whenever Elara faltered. The day Nyx and Var brought Elara to the forest on Callistra, the air was thick with unspoken tension. She'd noticed their quiet conversations and the brief, pitying glances they exchanged in the days leading up to the journey, but she didn't fully understand their meaning. Callistra was a stunning world, covered in bioluminescent foliage that glowed in colors unseen on Earth. Trees with twisting branches stretched towards the sky, their leaves casting an ethereal light that made everything feel alive and enchanted. The trio traveled deep into the forest, farther than they'd ever gone before, Nyx guiding her hoverchair along winding trails that disappeared into a blanket of alien flora. They stopped in a serene clearing with a small, trickling brook nearby and a soft bed of moss, illuminated in hues of teal and indigo. The vibrant forest seemed to pulse, as though it were breathing in harmony with the creatures that called it home. Elara admired the beauty around her, but an ache in her chest told her that something was wrong. Nyx and Var lingered, standing close to her, yet keeping an unusual distance in their gazes, as though their minds were somewhere far beyond the clearing. She reached out for their hands, but they looked away, fixing their eyes instead on the shimmering trees, the rustling undergrowth. Elara, Var began softly, a weight in his tone that she'd never heard before. This world is peaceful. It's a place where life thrives without interference. He paused, searching for words that were difficult to find. You'll have a chance to connect with it, to find a harmony here that we cannot offer you. Nyx knelt beside her, their expression tender but sorrowful, the light in their eyes dimmed by something they couldn't fully conceal. We can't give you the life you deserve, Elara, they whispered. Here, you'll be free, embraced by nature itself. Confusion and fear filled Elara, her mind racing to make sense of their words. She wanted to plead, to cry out for them not to leave her, but her voice felt trapped, swallowed by the heavy silence of the forest. Var and Nyx lingered only a moment longer, then stood, their faces unreadable as they turned and began to walk back along the forest path. Alone in the forest, Elara's first nights were full of fear and confusion. She shivered as strange sounds echoed through the trees, the rustling of unknown creatures in the darkness filling her with dread. Her human body, so weakened by her disease, felt even more vulnerable surrounded by the towering, ancient trees and the unfamiliar life around her. Her calls for Nyx and Var went unanswered, swallowed by the dense, pulsing silence of Callistra. But as the days passed, something changed. The forest, which had seemed so indifferent, began to reveal itself to her in ways that felt almost intentional. A group of small, glowing creatures with eyes that gleamed like gemstones started appearing at dusk, bringing her strange, bioluminescent fruits. They would deposit the fruits close to her, watching intently as she examined the offerings, their faces lit with an intelligence she couldn't quite comprehend. She ate the fruit, surprised at how filling and energizing it was, as if the food were crafted specifically to meet her needs. As more days faded into nights, Elara noticed that the forest seemed to respond to her presence. When she felt cold, vines draped with thick, mossy growths would curl around her, creating a warm cocoon. When she felt too weak to move, small roots extended gently from the ground, lifting her like cradling hands, supporting her body with an organic tenderness. The trees around her began to emit a softer glow when she was near, a faint, rhythmic pulse that almost felt like a heartbeat, connecting her to the living ecosystem. Soon, she found herself adapting to this strange form of survival, her senses becoming sharper, more attuned to the subtle rhythms of the forest. She began to hear the trees' whispers as they bent in the wind, smell the faint floral scents that marked safe pathways, and identify the creatures who posed no harm. Her illness no longer felt like a burden. The vines and roots that wrapped around her limbs moved for her, allowing her to explore in ways she had never been able to before. Over time, she noticed a profound shift within herself. Her skin, once pale and frail, began to absorb the faint bioluminescence of the forest, taking on a soft, shimmering glow that mirrored the flora around her. She would look down at her hands and see faint streaks of light beneath her skin, as though galaxies had taken root within her very cells, merging her with the life of Callistra. Her body, weak and degenerating, had found a new strength in its connection to the forest, as if she were no longer entirely human, but part of something larger, more ancient. As time wore on, Elara's connection to the forest deepened beyond anything she could have imagined. The once clear lines between her and the environment blurred, as though the forest itself had begun to accept her as one of its own. Her skin, once smooth and human, now showed faint patterns resembling the swirling lines of tree bark and the delicate veins of leaves. The shimmering glow beneath her skin had spread, tracing intricate, star-like constellations across her arms, her chest, and even her face, until she appeared to be a part of the bioluminescent forest around her. Her senses continued to evolve as she adapted to her surroundings. She could feel the soft vibrations of the trees beneath her hands, sense the quiet hum of energy that pulsed through the roots and branches. She began to understand that this energy was the language of the forest, a gentle, unspoken conversation among all living things. When she focused, she could almost hear the trees speak in a language that was both strange and familiar, a series of whispers, sighs, and songs that connected everything in a network of life. The forest creatures grew bolder, no longer approaching her only at night, but joining her during the day, weaving through her legs or perching on her shoulders, their small bodies pulsing with the same bioluminescent glow. They treated her as they did each other, unafraid and accepting, as if she were now one of them. She realized they, too, were part of the forest's ancient network, bonded together through the shared energy that flowed through Callistra. Her disease, which had once felt like a weight pulling her down, was now absorbed by the forest's embrace. Vines wound around her legs and arms, replacing her muscles, helping her to stand and move. Tiny roots wrapped around her fingers, guiding her to pluck fruits, dig into the soft earth, and interact with her surroundings. She began to understand the patterns of growth and decay, the cycles of life that govern the forest. When she pressed her hand to the ground, she could feel a subtle warmth radiating up from the earth, as if the forest was lending her strength, feeding her with its ancient energy. Even the trees themselves seemed to respond to her presence. They bent their branches to shelter her from storms, opened their bark to reveal hidden hollows for her to rest in, and dropped fruits that were ripe and nourishing just as she needed them. Over time, she no longer felt like a foreigner, but a creature woven into the very fabric of Callistra. Her thoughts became slower, calmer, attuned to the rhythm of the forest, her fears fading into an understanding of her place within this living, breathing world. As her bond with the forest deepened, Elara felt her consciousness expanding, reaching beyond the confines of her once human mind. The forest had become her home, her body, her very being. She no longer thought in terms of I or me, as she once had. Her awareness had merged with the ancient network of Callistra, and through it, she began to sense the energy of the cosmos itself. At night, when the skies above filled with unfamiliar constellations, she could feel a soft, electric hum emanating from the stars. They were no longer distant points of light, but pulses of life and energy connected to her through invisible threads, like roots extending into the heavens. The stars seemed to recognize her, each one carrying a whisper of wisdom, fragments of stories from distant galaxies, all woven into the fabric of the cosmos. She began to understand that the energy flowing within her was a reflection of that celestial light, a spark of the same stardust that fueled worlds across the universe. Her connection to the forest was only the beginning. She sensed that the energy of Callistra was but one part of a vast web that connected planets, stars, and galaxies in a rhythm that pulsed throughout the cosmos. As her mind opened further, she could feel her energy flowing through this web, like rivers branching out to meet the vast ocean of existence. She felt the life of other planets, the growth of distant forests, the light of stars that had burned out centuries ago, yet still touched her with their ancient glow. The creatures around her, too, seemed aware of her transformation. They gathered around her in reverence, their own energies blending with hers until they were all part of a single, pulsing heart. She realized that she was no longer just Elara, nor merely a part of Callistra's forest, but a node in the cosmic network that stretched across time and space. She felt as if she could reach out and touch the essence of Nyx and Var, who were far away, yet somehow woven into the same tapestry of life. She understood that she was becoming a bridge, a vessel through which the energy of the cosmos flowed into Callistra, and from Callistra back into the universe. The constellations above seemed to shift, forming new patterns and symbols, as though they were welcoming her into the greater expanse. With each breath, she inhaled stardust and exhaled life, her soul expanding beyond her form and merging with the vastness above. She had transcended her origins, her limitations, and her isolation, becoming a part of something infinite, a quiet, eternal echo within the fabric of the cosmos.